Hello, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Emma's Stories, where love, passion, and heartfelt emotions come alive in every tale. Let's dive into today's journey. A story crafted with pure love and deep emotions, created just for you, my cherished readers. Today's story is about Olivia, a resilient single mother who finds herself in the midst of life's challenges but discovers unexpected love and unwavering support in Ethan, a kind-hearted man who changes her life forever. It's a tale of strength, hope, and the courage to embrace new beginnings. Does it touch your soul? I pour my heart into every story, hoping to bring you joy, love, and inspiration for your own lives. Every word I write reflects the love and gratitude I feel for each and every one of you. Your comments, encouragement, and presence in this community inspire me to keep creating stories that resonate with your hearts. Thank you for being here and for allowing me to share these moments with you. Let's continue this beautiful journey together. Olivia Morgan stood in the break room of St. Vincent's Hospital, staring at her reflection in the small, cracked mirror above the sink. Her dark brown hair was pulled into a messy bun, and the exhaustion in her hazel eyes was impossible to hide. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting a harsh glow on her pale skin. She splashed cold water on her face, hoping it would wake her up enough to get through the rest of her shift. It was 3 a.m., and she still had 2 hours to go before she could head home to her daughter, Lily. Lily was the light of Olivia's life. At just 7 years old, she was bright, curious, and full of energy, a stark contrast to Olivia's weary demeanor. Olivia worked long hours as a nurse, often pulling double shifts to make ends meet. Since her divorce from Anthony Miller 2 years ago, life had been a constant struggle. Anthony, a successful real estate agent, had always been critical of Olivia, and their marriage had been filled with tension. Now, even as her ex-husband, he continued to make her life difficult, often questioning her parenting decisions and threatening to revisit their custody arrangement. Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her out of her thoughts. She dried her hands on her scrubs and checked the screen. It was a call from an international number. Frowning, she answered, her heart sinking as she heard the voice on the other end. "Olivia, it's Aunt Clara," the voice said, trembling with emotion. I need you to come to London. The doctors, they don't think I have much time left." Aunt Clara had been more than just an aunt to Olivia. She had been a second mother, stepping in to care for her when Olivia's own parents had passed away in a car accident when she was just a teenager. But life had pulled them apart. Olivia had moved to New York to start her own family, and Clara had stayed in London. They hadn't spoken in years, and the guilt of that silence now weighed heavily on Olivia's chest. "I'll come," Olivia said, her voice breaking. "I'll be there as soon as I can." The next morning, Olivia sat at the kitchen table with Lily, explaining as gently as she could that she had to leave for a few days. Lily's big brown eyes filled with tears, and she clung to Olivia's arm. "But why can't I come with you, Mommy?" she asked, her voice trembling. Olivia hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of Lily's strawberry shampoo. "I promise I'll call you every day, sweetheart, and I'll bring you back something special from London." Anthony arrived to pick up Lily, his expression as cold and disapproving as ever. "You're really leaving her for this?" he asked, his tone dripping with judgment. Olivia bit back a sharp retort. "It's not up for discussion, Anthony. I'll be back in a few days." As she packed her bag later that evening, Olivia felt a mix of emotions: guilt, fear, and a faint glimmer of hope. She didn't know what awaited her in London, but she knew she couldn't ignore Clara's call. With one last look at Lily's sleeping face, she whispered, "I'll be back soon, my love," and closed the door behind her. The early morning air was crisp as Olivia Morgan stepped out of the cab at JFK Airport, her small suitcase in tow. The terminal buzzed with the chaotic energy of travelers rushing to catch flights, announcements echoing overhead. Olivia clutched her boarding pass tightly, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with thoughts of Aunt Clara, Lily, and the daunting journey ahead. As she made her way through security, Olivia couldn't shake the image of Lily's tearful face from her mind. The guilt gnawed at her. She had always been there for her daughter, through scraped knees, bedtime stories, and the quiet moments when Lily would crawl into her lap just to feel safe. Leaving her behind, even for a few days, felt like a betrayal. But Aunt Clara's voice on the phone had been so frail, so desperate, Olivia knew she couldn't ignore the call for help. Her phone buzzed in her pocket as she reached the gate. It was a text from Anthony. "Anthony, I hope you realize how irresponsible this is. Don't expect me to clean up your mess," when Lily asks why her mom left her. Olivia's jaw tightened as she read the message. She took a deep breath, trying to push the anger aside. Anthony had always been like this, controlling, critical, and quick to judge. Even after their divorce, he found ways to undermine her confidence. But she wouldn't let him get to her, not this time. She typed a quick reply. "Olivia, Lily knows I love her. That's all that matters." As she hit send, the boarding announcement crackled over the speakers. Olivia gathered her things and joined the line, her heart heavy but resolute. She was doing this for Clara, for the woman who had once been her rock when the world had fallen apart. And maybe, just maybe, this trip would give her the clarity she needed to move forward in her own life. The flight was long, and Olivia found herself lost in thought as the plane soared over the Atlantic. She thought about the last time she had seen Aunt Clara nearly a decade ago. Clara had been vibrant then, full of life and laughter. The idea of her now being frail and bedridden was almost too much to bear. Olivia felt a pang of regret for letting so much time pass without reaching out. Life had a way of pulling people apart, but she wished she had tried harder to stay connected. As the hours dragged on, Olivia's exhaustion began to catch up with her. She leaned her head against the window, watching the endless expanse of clouds below. Her eyelids grew heavy, and for a moment, she allowed herself to drift off, the hum of the engines lulling her into a restless sleep. When she woke, the plane was beginning its descent into London. Olivia rubbed her eyes, her heart racing as the reality of what lay ahead sank in. She was about to step into a city she hadn't visited in years, to face a woman who had once been her lifeline but was now a stranger in many ways. And yet, despite the fear and uncertainty, there was a flicker of hope, a sense that this journey, however difficult, might lead to something unexpected. As the plane touched down, Olivia gripped the armrests, steadying herself. She had no idea what awaited her in London, but she knew one thing for certain: she was ready to face it, no matter what. Olivia Morgan hurried through Heathrow Airport, her carry-on bag slung over her shoulder and her mind racing with thoughts of Aunt Clara. The flight from New York had been long and emotionally draining, but she was finally here. She glanced at her phone, checking the directions to the hospital Clara had mentioned. Her heart ached with worry, but she pushed it aside. There was no time to waste. As she approached the taxi stand, a voice behind her caught her attention. "Excuse me, miss, you dropped this." Olivia turned to see a tall man holding her scarf. She hadn't even realized it had slipped from her bag. He was striking, with dark hair that curled slightly at the ends and piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold a quiet intensity. He wore a tailored navy blazer over a crisp white shirt, and his presence exuded a calm confidence. "Oh, thank you," Olivia said, taking the scarf from him. "I didn't even notice." "No trouble at all," the man replied with a warm smile. "It's a beautiful scarf. Would have been ashamed to lose it." Olivia nodded, offering a polite smile in return. She was about to turn away when the man spoke again. "Are you heading into the city?" he asked, gesturing toward the line of taxis. "Yes, to St. Mary's Hospital," Olivia replied, her voice tinged with urgency. The man's expression softened. "I'm heading in that direction. Would you like to share a cab? It might save you some time." Olivia hesitated for a moment. She didn't usually accept offers from strangers, but something about this man felt trustworthy, and time was of the essence. "Sure," she said finally. "Thank you." As they settled into the back seat of the cab, Olivia couldn't help but feel a little self-conscious. She was still wearing her travel-worn clothes, her hair pulled into a messy bun, while the man beside her looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine. "I'm Ethan, by the way," he said, extending a hand. "Olivia," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but gentle, and his touch sent a small, unexpected spark through her. The cab pulled away from the curb, and for a moment they rode in silence. Olivia stared out the window, her thoughts drifting back to Aunt Clara. But Ethan's voice soon broke the quiet. "Are you visiting someone at the hospital?" he asked, his tone genuinely curious. "Yes," Olivia said, her voice soft. "My aunt, she's not doing well." "I'm sorry to hear that," Ethan said, his expression sincere. "Family is everything, isn't it?" Olivia nodded, surprised by the depth of his response. "It is. She was like a second mother to me when I was younger. I just wish I hadn't let so much time pass before coming to see her." Ethan didn't press further, sensing the weight of her emotions. Instead, he shifted the conversation to lighter topics, asking about her flight and sharing a few anecdotes about his own travels. Olivia found herself relaxing, her initial tension easing as they talked. As the cab weaved through the streets of London, Olivia learned that Ethan was an entrepreneur who had built a successful tech company but had recently stepped back to focus on philanthropic work. He spoke with a quiet humility, never boasting about his accomplishments, and Olivia found herself drawn to his grounded nature. "What about you?" Ethan asked, turning the conversation back to her. "What do you do?" "I'm a nurse," Olivia said, a hint of pride in her voice. "I work at a hospital in New York." Ethan's eyes lit up with admiration. "That's incredible. It must be such a demanding job." "It is," Olivia admitted. "But it's also rewarding. I love being able to help people, even if it means long hours and little sleep." Ethan smiled. "The world needs more people like you, Olivia." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, and for a moment she didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to receiving compliments, especially from someone like Ethan. As the cab pulled up to the hospital, Ethan reached for his wallet, but Olivia stopped him. "Let me pay my share," she insisted. Ethan shook his head. "Absolutely not. Consider it my way of saying thank you for the company." Olivia hesitated but eventually relented, offering him a grateful smile. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." He nodded, his blue eyes meeting hers. "Take care, Olivia, and I hope your aunt gets better." As she stepped out of the cab and watched it drive away, Olivia couldn't help but feel a strange sense of loss. She had only just met Ethan, but there was something about him that lingered in her mind. Shaking off the thought, she turned toward the hospital, her focus shifting back to Aunt Clara. But as she walked through the hospital doors, she couldn't shake the feeling that her encounter with Ethan was more than just a chance meeting. It felt like the beginning of something she couldn't quite define, a spark of hope in the midst of uncertainty. The next morning, Olivia sat by Aunt Clara's bedside in the quiet hospital room. The soft beeping of the monitors and the faint hum of the air conditioning filled the space. Clara looked frail, her once vibrant face now pale and thin, but her eyes still held the same warmth Olivia remembered from her childhood. "I'm so glad you came, my dear," Clara said, her voice weak but steady. She reached out and squeezed Olivia's hand. "I've missed you." "I've missed you too," Olivia replied, her throat tightening with emotion. "I'm sorry it took me so long to come." Clara smiled faintly. "You're here now, that's all that matters." They talked for hours, reminiscing about the past and catching up on the years they had lost. For the first time in a long while, Olivia felt a sense of peace. But that peace was short-lived. Later that afternoon, as Olivia stepped out of the hospital to grab a coffee, her phone buzzed with a series of notifications. She frowned, pulling it out of her pocket. Her heart sank as she saw dozens of messages and missed calls. Most were from friends and coworkers, but a few were from Anthony. She opened one of the messages, her stomach twisting as she read the words. Olivia, what's going on? You're all over the internet. Confused, Olivia quickly opened her social media app. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw the photo. It was a candid shot of her and Ethan in the cab the day before. She was leaning slightly toward him, her face soft with a tired smile, while Ethan looked at her with an expression of quiet attentiveness. The caption read, "Love at first sight? A heartwarming moment between two strangers in London." The post had gone viral, with thousands of likes, comments, and shares. Some of the comments were kind, calling the photo beautiful and romantic, but others were harsh and judgmental. He's clearly after his money. Another gold digger trying to trap a rich guy. This is staged. No way someone like her would catch a guy like him. Olivia's hands trembled as she scrolled through the comments. Her face burned with humiliation. How had this happened? Who had taken the photo? And why was it spreading like wildfire? Before she could process it, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Anthony calling. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "What the hell is this, Olivia?" Anthony's voice was sharp and accusatory. "You're gallivanting around London with some rich guy while Lily is back here wondering where her mother is." "It's not what it looks like," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "I don't even know how that photo got out." "Well, it's out there now," Anthony snapped. "And don't think for a second that I won't use this in court. You're making a fool of yourself, and it's going to affect Lily." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes as she ended the call. She felt trapped, overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught of attention and criticism. All she had wanted was to visit her aunt and do the right thing for her family. Now, her personal life was being dissected by strangers, and Anthony was using it as ammunition against her. As she stood there, frozen in the middle of the bustling London street, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. "Olivia, it's Ethan. I just saw the photo. Can we talk?" Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, especially not under these circumstances. After a moment's hesitation, she replied, "Yes. Where are you?" An hour later, Olivia found herself sitting across from Ethan in a quiet corner of a small cafe. He looked as calm and composed as ever, but there was a hint of concern in his eyes. "I'm so sorry about all of this," Ethan said, his voice low and sincere. "I had no idea someone had taken that photo." "It's not your fault," Olivia said, though her voice wavered. I don't know how to handle this. People are saying awful things, and my ex-husband is threatening to use it against me in court." Ethan frowned, his jaw tightening. "That's unacceptable. No one should have to go through this, especially not you." Olivia looked down at her hands, feeling a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. "I don't even know why this is happening. I'm just a nurse from New York. I'm not anyone special." Ethan reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. "You are special, Olivia. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." His words, spoken with such quiet conviction, brought tears to her eyes. For the first time since the photo had gone viral, she felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that she wasn't facing this alone. "I really want to help," Ethan continued. "I have a PR team that can handle this. We'll get the photo taken down and issue a statement to clear things up." "You don't have to do that," Olivia said, though her voice was soft. "This isn't your problem." Ethan shook his head. "It is my problem. I care about you, Olivia, and I won't stand by while people try to tear you down." His words took her by surprise. They had only just met, but there was something in his tone, in the way he looked at her, that made her believe he meant every word. For the first time in a long while, Olivia felt seen, not as a struggling single mother or a tired nurse, but as a person worthy of care and respect. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Ethan smiled, his hand still resting over hers. "You don't have to do this alone, Olivia. I'm here." As they sat there, The chaos of the outside world seemed to fade away. For the first time since arriving in London, Olivia felt a sense of calm, a sense that, despite everything, she might just be able to weather this storm. The next morning, Olivia woke up to a flood of new notifications on her phone. She hesitated before opening them, bracing herself for more negativity. But to her surprise, the tone of the messages had shifted. Instead of harsh criticism, there were supportive comments and messages of encouragement. "Don't let the haters get to you, Olivia. You're doing your best. This is such a sweet moment. People need to stop judging. Stay strong, girl. You've got this." Confused but cautiously optimistic, Olivia scrolled through her social media feed. She quickly realized what had caused the change. Ethan had released a statement through his PR team, addressing the viral photo and defending Olivia. The statement read, "The photo circulating online was taken without consent and misrepresents the situation. Olivia Morgan is a hard-working nurse and a devoted mother who was simply traveling to visit her ailing aunt. She deserves respect and privacy, not baseless judgment. Let's focus on kindness and understanding instead of tearing people down." Ethan's words had struck a chord with many people, and the tide of public opinion was beginning to turn. Olivia felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in days, she didn't feel completely alone in this ordeal. Her phone buzzed with a call, and she quickly answered when she saw Ethan's name on the screen. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm and steady. "How are you holding up?" "Better," Olivia admitted. "I saw the statement you released. I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Ethan replied. "I just wanted to make sure people knew the truth. You didn't deserve any of this." Olivia smiled, though he couldn't see it. "It means a lot, Ethan. Really." "Well, I'm glad to hear that," he said. "But I was actually calling to see if you'd like to meet for lunch. I know you've been under a lot of stress, and I thought it might be nice to take a break." Olivia hesitated for a moment. She still had so much on her mind. Aunt Clara, Lily, the custody threats from Anthony, but the idea of spending time with Ethan was undeniably appealing. He had been a source of comfort and support during one of the most difficult times in her life, and she found herself wanting to know more about him. "Lunch sounds great," she said finally. "Where should we meet?" "I'll text you the address," Ethan said. "It's a quiet little spot I think you'll like." A few hours later, Olivia found herself sitting across from Ethan in a cozy cafe, tucked away in a quiet corner of London. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, with soft music playing in the background, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air. Ethan had chosen a table near the window, where they could talk without being disturbed. As they waited for their food, he leaned back in his chair, studying her with a thoughtful expression. "You seem more relaxed today," he said. "I'm glad," Olivia nodded, taking a sip of her tea. "I think I'm finally starting to breathe again. It's been a whirlwind, but your support has made all the difference." Ethan smiled. "I'm just glad I could help. You've been through so much, Olivia. You deserve a break." They talked easily, the conversation flowing from one topic to another. Olivia learned more about Ethan's philanthropic work, including a foundation he had started to support underprivileged children. His passion for helping others was evident, and Olivia found herself admiring him even more. "What about you?" Ethan asked, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "What made you want to become a nurse?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, then smiled softly. "When I was a teenager, my parents died in a car accident. It was devastating. But during that time, I met a nurse who took care of me like I was her own child. She was so kind and compassionate, and she made me feel like I wasn't alone. I wanted to be that person for someone else." Ethan's expression softened. "That's incredible, Olivia. You've turned your pain into something meaningful. That takes real strength." Olivia felt her cheeks flush at his words. She wasn't used to being praised like this, especially by someone like Ethan, but his sincerity was undeniable, and it warmed her in a way she hadn't expected. As they finished their meal, Ethan leaned forward slightly, his tone turning serious. I know you're dealing with a lot right now, your aunt, your ex-husband, everything that's happened online. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. You don't have to face this alone. Olivia's heart swelled at his words. She had spent so much of her life feeling like she had to carry everything on her own, but Ethan's presence was a reminder that it was okay to lean on someone else. Thank you, Ethan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That means more to me than you know. Later that evening, as Olivia returned to the hospital, she felt a renewed sense of hope. Aunt Clara's condition was still fragile, and Anthony's threats loomed in the back of her mind. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had someone in her corner. As she sat by Clara's bedside, holding her hand and listening to her soft breathing, Olivia thought about everything that had happened over the past few days. Life had thrown her into chaos, but it had also brought her an unexpected ally, someone who saw her for who she truly was, and believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. And as she looked out the window at the London skyline, Olivia couldn't help but wonder if this was the start of something new, something she hadn't dared to hope for in a long time. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Olivia. Between spending time with Aunt Clara at the hospital and managing the fallout from the viral photo, she barely had a moment to herself. But through it all, Ethan remained a steady presence in her life. He checked in on her daily, offering words of encouragement and support, and even stopped by the hospital once to bring her coffee and pastries. Aunt Clara, despite her frailty, noticed the change in Olivia. One afternoon, as Olivia sat by her bedside, Clara gave her a knowing smile. You seem lighter, my dear, Clara said, her voice soft but teasing. Is there someone special in your life? Olivia's cheeks flushed, and she shook her head. It's not like that, Aunt Clara. Ethan is just a friend. He's been helping me through all of this. Clara raised an eyebrow, her smile widening. A friend? Well, from the way you talk about him, he sounds like much more than that. Olivia laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. He's kind, and he's been there for me when I needed someone. But my life is complicated, Clara. I have Lily to think about, and Anthony is already making things difficult. I can't afford to get distracted. Clara reached out and took Olivia's hand, her grip surprisingly firm. Listen to me, Olivia. Life is always going to be complicated, but that doesn't mean you should close yourself off to happiness. You deserve to be loved, my dear. Don't let fear stop you from letting someone in. Olivia's eyes filled with tears as she squeezed Clara's hand. I just don't want to make a mistake. I've made so many already. Clara smiled gently. The only mistake you can make is not giving yourself a chance. Trust your heart, Olivia. It knows what you need. That evening, as Olivia walked back to her hotel, Clara's words echoed in her mind. She thought about Ethan, his kindness, his unwavering support, and the way he made her feel seen and valued. It had been so long since she had allowed herself to feel anything for someone else, and the thought both excited and terrified her. When she reached her room, she found a message from Ethan waiting on her phone. Ethan, I hope your aunt is doing okay. I was thinking about you today. Let me know if you need anything. Olivia stared at the message for a moment, her heart pounding. She hesitated, then typed a reply. Olivia, thank you, Ethan. She's stable for now, but it's still touch and go. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. His response came almost immediately. Ethan, you don't have to thank me, Olivia. I'm just glad I can be here for you. Are you free tomorrow? I'd love to take you and your aunt out for some fresh air, if she's feeling up to it. Olivia smiled at the thought. Clara had been cooped up in the hospital for days, and a change of scenery might do her some good. She quickly replied, Olivia, that sounds wonderful. I'll check with Claire and let you know. The next day, Ethan arrived at the hospital with a bouquet of flowers for Clara and a warm smile that immediately put her at ease. Despite her initial teasing, Clara seemed genuinely charmed by Ethan, and Olivia couldn't help but notice how easily he connected with her aunt. He listened attentively as Clara shared stories from her youth, laughing at her jokes and treating her with the utmost respect. They spent the afternoon in a nearby park, enjoying the crisp autumn air and the golden leaves that blanketed the ground. Clara sat in a wheelchair, bundled up in a cozy blanket, while Olivia and Ethan walked beside her, pushing the chair and chatting about everything from their favorite books to their childhood memories. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt a sense of normalcy, a moment of peace amidst the chaos. She caught herself stealing glances at Ethan, her heart fluttering whenever their eyes met. There was something about him that made her feel safe, like she could finally let her guard down. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Clara turned to Olivia with a mischievous smile. "You know, my dear," Clara said, her voice light but pointed, "I think I approve of this one." Olivia's cheeks turned bright red, and she quickly looked away, but Ethan chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Thank you, Clara," he said, his tone playful. "That means a lot coming from you." Clara winked at him, then turned her attention back to Olivia. "Don't let this one get away, my dear. He's a keeper." Olivia laughed nervously, but deep down she couldn't deny that Clara's words struck a chord. There was something about Ethan, something she hadn't felt in a long time, and for the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was ready to take a chance. That night, after settling Clara back into her hospital room, Olivia and Ethan walked together through the quiet streets of London. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, and the cool night air carried a sense of calm. "Thank you for today," Olivia said, her voice soft. "Clara really enjoyed herself, and so did I." Ethan smiled, his hands tucked into his coat pockets. "I'm glad. She's an incredible woman, Olivia. I can see where you get it from." Olivia looked down, her cheeks flushing. "I don't know about that." "I do," Ethan said, his tone serious. He stopped walking and turned to face her, his blue eyes searching hers. "You're strong, compassionate, and selfless, and you've been through so much, but you still keep going. That's something to admire." Olivia's breath caught in her throat as she met his gaze. For a moment, the world seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them standing there in the glow of the streetlights. "Ethan," she began, but he gently interrupted her. "I know your life is complicated," he said, his voice low and steady. "And I don't want to rush you or make things harder for you, but I want you to know that I care about you, Olivia, and I'm here, no matter what." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes as she listened to his words. She had spent so long building walls around her heart, afraid to let anyone in. But Ethan's kindness and patience were slowly breaking through those walls, and for the first time, she felt like she could trust someone with her heart. "I care about you too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared, Ethan. I don't want to make another mistake." Ethan reached out and gently took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You're not making a mistake, Olivia. Sometimes the best things in life come when we least expect them." As they stood there, hand in hand, Olivia felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. Maybe Clara was right. Maybe it was time to stop letting fear hold her back and take a chance on happiness. And as Ethan leaned in, his lips brushing softly against hers, Olivia realized that this was the beginning of something new, something she hadn't dared to dream of but now couldn't imagine letting go. The days that followed were a delicate balance of hope and uncertainty for Olivia. Aunt Clara's condition remained fragile, but the time they spent together was filled with love and laughter. Ethan continued to be a steady presence, offering support in ways Olivia hadn't realized she needed, whether it was bringing her meals, sitting with Clara to give Olivia a moment to herself, or simply being there to listen. Ethan had become an integral part of her life in a way that felt both natural and unexpected. But as much as Olivia cherished these moments, the reality of her life back in New York loomed over her like a dark cloud. Anthony's threats about revisiting their custody arrangement still lingered in her mind, and she knew she couldn't avoid the situation forever. She had to face it head-on for Lily's sake. One evening, as Olivia and Ethan sat together in the hospital's small garden, she finally opened up about her fears. "I'm scared, Ethan," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Anthony has always been manipulative, and now he's using that photo as an excuse to question my ability to be a good mother. I can't lose Lily. She's my whole world." Ethan reached for her hand, his touch grounding her. "You're an amazing mother, Olivia. Anyone who knows you can see that. Anthony's threats are just that, threats. He's trying to intimidate you because he knows how much Lily means to you." Olivia nodded, though her heart still felt heavy. "But what if he follows through? What if he takes me to court? I don't have the resources to fight him." Ethan's expression softened, and he gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You're not alone in this, Olivia. I'll help you in any way I can. If it comes to that, I'll make sure you have the best legal support available." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes as she looked at him. "You've already done so much for me, Ethan. I don't want to burden you with my problems." "You're not a burden," Ethan said firmly. "You're someone I care about deeply, and when you care about someone, you stand by them no matter what." Olivia's heart swelled at his words. She had spent so much of her life feeling like she had to face everything on her own, but Ethan's unwavering support was teaching her that it was okay to lean on someone else. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Ethan smiled, his blue eyes warm and steady. "You don't have to do this alone anymore, Olivia. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, Olivia received a call from Anthony's lawyer. As she listened to the man's clipped, professional tone, her stomach twisted with anxiety. Anthony was officially filing a motion to revisit their custody agreement, citing the viral photo as evidence of Olivia's irresponsible behavior. The lawyer's words were cold and calculated, designed to rattle her, and by the time the call ended, Olivia felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. She immediately called Ethan, her voice shaking as she explained what had happened. Within minutes, he was at the hospital, his presence calming her frayed nerves. "We'll fight this," Ethan said, his tone resolute. "I'll connect you with a family lawyer I know. She's one of the best, and she'll make sure Anthony doesn't get away with this." Olivia nodded, though the weight of the situation still pressed heavily on her. "I just don't understand why he's doing this. He's never shown much interest in Lily before. Why now?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Because he knows how much Lily means to you. This isn't about her. It's about control. He's trying to hurt you because he knows it's the only way he can—" Olivia's chest tightened at the truth of his words. Anthony had always been manipulative, but this felt like a new low even for him. Still, she knew Ethan was right. She couldn't let Anthony win. She had to fight for Lily, no matter how difficult it might be. Over the next few days, Olivia worked closely with the lawyer Ethan had recommended. The woman, a sharp and compassionate professional named Rachel, immediately put Olivia at ease. She assured Olivia that the photo alone wasn't enough to question her fitness as a mother, and that they would build a strong case to counter Anthony's claims. Meanwhile, Ethan continued to be a source of strength for Olivia. He accompanied her to meetings with Rachel, helped her gather the necessary documents, and even spent time video calling Lily to keep her spirits up. Watching Ethan interact with her daughter filled Olivia with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. He was patient and kind, asking Lily about her favorite books and games, and making her laugh with his silly jokes. It was clear that he genuinely cared about her, and that realization only deepened Olivia's feelings for him. One evening, after a particularly long day, Olivia and Ethan sat together in her hotel room, sharing a quiet moment. The city lights twinkled outside the window, casting a soft glow over the room. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done," Olivia said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've gone above and beyond for me, Ethan. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Ethan reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You don't have to repay me, Olivia. I'm doing this because I care about you, and because I believe in you." Olivia's heart swelled at his words, and for a moment she allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't have to face everything alone, a future where she and Lily could have the stability and love they both deserved. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm grateful for you. You've been my rock through all of this, and I don't think I've ever felt this way about anyone before." Ethan's eyes softened, and he reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I feel the same way, Olivia, and I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm here for you and Lily." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. In that moment, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years, a sense that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she wasn't facing them alone. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week, and though Olivia was nervous, she felt more prepared than ever. With Rachel's expertise and Ethan's unwavering support, she knew she had a strong case. And as she stood outside the courthouse on the morning of the hearing, Ethan by her side, she felt a renewed sense of determination. "This is it," she said, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready." Ethan smiled, his hand resting gently on her back. "You've got this, Olivia. Just remember you're not alone." As they walked into the courthouse together, Olivia felt a surge of strength. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer the same woman who had boarded that flight to London. She was stronger, braver, and ready to fight for the life she and Lily deserved. And no matter what happened, she knew she had found something she hadn't dared to hope for, a partner who believed in her, stood by her, and made her feel like she was finally home. The day of the custody hearing arrived with a mix of tension and determination. Olivia sat in the courtroom, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across the room, Anthony sat with his lawyer, his expression smug and confident. It was a look Olivia knew all too well, one that had once made her feel small and powerless. But not today. Today she wasn't alone. Ethan sat quietly in the back of the courtroom, his presence a steady reminder that she had someone in her corner. Rachel, Olivia's lawyer, was calm and composed as she presented their case. She painted a clear picture of Olivia's dedication as a mother, her stable career as a nurse, and the loving home she had built for Lily. She also didn't shy away from addressing the viral photo, explaining how it had been taken out of context and used unfairly to attack Olivia's character. When it was Anthony's turn, his lawyer leaned heavily on the photo, attempting to portray Olivia as irresponsible and distracted. But Rachel was quick to counter, pointing out Anthony's lack of involvement in Lily's life and his sudden interest in custody, only after the photo had gone viral. As the hearing progressed, Olivia felt a mix of emotions, fear, anger, and hope. She glanced back at Ethan occasionally, drawing strength from his reassuring smile. He believed in her, and that belief gave her the courage to keep fighting. After hours of arguments and testimony, the judge finally delivered the verdict. Olivia held her breath as the judge spoke, her heart pounding in her chest. After reviewing the evidence and hearing from both parties, it is clear to this court that Ms. Morgan has provided a stable and loving environment for her daughter. The photo in question does not reflect any neglect or irresponsibility on her part. Therefore, the current custody arrangement will remain in place, with Ms. Morgan retaining primary custody of Lily. Relief washed over Olivia like a tidal wave. Tears filled her eyes as she turned to Rachel, who gave her a reassuring nod. She had won. She had fought for Lily, and she had won. As she left the courtroom, Ethan was waiting for her in the hallway. The moment she saw him, she rushed into his arms, unable to hold back her emotions. "You did it," Ethan said softly, holding her close. "I knew you would." "I couldn't have done it without you," Olivia whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." Ethan pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "You don't have to thank me, Olivia. I'm just so proud of you. You're stronger than you realize." Olivia smiled through her tears, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that everything was going to be okay. The weeks that followed were a time of healing and new beginnings. Olivia returned to New York with Lily, ready to rebuild their lives with a renewed sense of purpose. Aunt Clara's condition had stabilized, and though she remained in London, Olivia made plans to visit her regularly. They spoke often, and Clara never missed an opportunity to tease Olivia about Ethan. Speaking of Ethan, he had become a constant presence in Olivia's life. Though they lived in different cities, they made time for each other, whether it was through late-night phone calls, weekend visits, or surprise gestures that reminded Olivia just how much he cared. One evening, as Olivia and Lily sat together on the couch watching a movie, her phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Ethan, I have a surprise for you. Can I call?" Olivia smiled and quickly replied, "Olivia, of course." A moment later, her phone rang, and Ethan's warm voice filled the room. "Hey you, how's my favorite duo doing?" "We're good," Olivia said, glancing at Lily, who was engrossed in the movie. "What's this surprise you're talking about?" "Well," Ethan began, his tone playful, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about you, me, and Lily, and I realize that I don't want to keep doing this long-distance thing. I want to be closer to you." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying, Ethan?" Berated. "I'm saying I'm moving to New York," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "I've already started looking at places, and I've found a few that I think you'll like. I want to be there for you and Lily, not just in spirit, but in person." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she listened to his words. She had spent so long feeling like she had to face everything on her own. But Ethan was showing her that she didn't have to anymore. She said softly, her voice trembling. "Are you sure? That's a big decision." "I've never been more sure of anything," he replied. "You and Lily are my future, Olivia. I want to build a life with you, if you'll have me." Olivia's heart swelled with emotion. She glanced at Lily, who had paused the movie and was now looking at her curiously. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily asked, her big brown eyes filled with concern. Olivia smiled and reached out to pull her daughter into a hug. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. I'm happy." Turning her attention back to the phone, Olivia took a deep breath. "Ethan, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want you to be a part of it. We want you to be a part of it." Ethan's laughter on the other end of the line was filled with joy. "That's all I needed to hear." A few months later, Ethan officially moved to New York, and their lives began to intertwine in ways Olivia had never imagined. He quickly became a father figure to Lily, who adored him, and the three of them formed a bond that felt natural and unbreakable. Olivia returned to her work as a nurse, but with Ethan's support, she found a better balance between her career and her personal life. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe, like she was no longer just surviving, but truly living. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their new home, watching Lily play in the yard, Ethan turned to Olivia with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I never expected to meet someone like you. You've changed my life, Olivia. You and Lily have given me something I didn't even know I was missing." Olivia smiled, her heart full. "You've changed my life too, Ethan. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I'm grateful every single day." Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I think we both got lucky." As they sat there, watching the sun set over the horizon, Olivia felt a sense of contentment she hadn't felt in years. Life had thrown her its share of challenges, but it had also given her something she never expected: a second chance at love, a partner who believed in her, and a future filled with hope. And for the first time, Olivia allowed herself to believe that she truly deserved it.